So it looks like Jake Paul decided to back out of the Hasim Rahman Jr. fight. It looks like he decided to cancel the fight due to Hasim to not making the weight in time, because he has to cut around 24 pounds, and he says he cannot cut all the way down to 200 or under 200, which is cruiserweight. So Rahman explained his side of the story in a couple tweets, explaining why, or the situation, and that Jake Paul is painting this as if his opponents quit on him. You know what I'm saying? But in reality, it's Jake Paul, the one that is, running scared. Let's be real here. There's no way Jake Paul beats Rahman Jr. No way. No chance. And Jake Paul knew that. Because there were several people that were calling it that he was gonna cancel this fight weeks before, and it looks like he did. Jake Paul has picked all of his opponents. All of Jake Paul's opponents have been smaller than him, and they aren't even boxers. You know what I'm saying? And now that there's someone who is bigger than him, he doesn't want to make the fight for 4 extra pounds. You know what I'm saying? He's scared. Now that there's someone bigger and stronger and actually has more of experience than him, he finally met way more than his match. It looks like Jake Paul decided to Jake Paul barked at the wrong tree. You know what I'm saying? Fights aren't canceled for weigh-ins. You know what I'm saying? They normally take some of the purse money that the fighter makes as a fine for missing the weight. And Rahman Jr. was down to do that. Rahman was down to give a lot of the money that he was gonna receive and just get $5,000 out of it. But Jake Paul said no. So pretty much Jake Paul he's a booze man. He's scared. He's running scared. He ain't that big, and he will get exposed, man. Jake Paul will get exposed. He could have. Why doesn't he fight Kenzie Morrison, the guy that beat Rahman Jr. on that exhibition, on that fight that they had? Why doesn't he fight Kenzie Morrison? Kenzie Morrison actually called out Paul a couple months ago, or 2 years ago, I think. And now that Jake Paul knows of Kenzie Morrison through the Rahman fight, he surely knows who Kenzie is. And the fact that he hasn't offered him a fight tells you much, man. Kenzie Morrison will beat the shit out of Jake Paul. Same with Rahman Jr. He will beat the shit out of Jake Paul. And he knows it, bro. Hence why he decided not to cancel the fight, and then putting all the blame on Rahman Jr. that he was the one to blame for the cancellation of the fight, which is not even true. They could have easily fought him. If Jake Paul fought or sparred Rahman Jr. when Rahman was 224 pounds 2 years ago, why doesn't he fight him now? Now that he's weights a lot less. It may not be the weight for the contract, but he still weighs way less. He weighs like maybe 205, 204, and the fact, and it just proves it, man. It proves what Jake Paul really is, man. He was the bigger man in all his previous fights, right? And now that there was someone bigger than him, he doesn't want to risk it. If he would have taken this fight and actually done it, it would have said a lot of Jake Paul, that he has guts and that he's courageous. But he's not courageous, or doesn't have heart, because to be honest, he would have taken the fight knowing that Rahman Jr. wasn't gonna make the weight. Like I said before, Jake Paul sparred Rahman Jr. when he was heavier. What's the problem with finding him at a lower, maybe 205, 206, on the weigh-ins, man? You know what I'm saying? But he's scared, man. He is scared, man, and he will get exposed. There's plenty of fighters he can fight, plenty of boxers out there. Kenzie Morrison is one of the main ones. Kenzie Morrison, he's out there. He wants to fight, and if Jake Paul's really about that, he would pick Kenzie Morrison. But guess what? He's not gonna do it. He will not do it. He's not gonna put Kenzie Morrison as his next fight. He might get another MMA fighter or someone who's not even a boxer, you know, a wrestler or someone smaller than him. And this just shows how much of a fraud Jake Paul really is. And let's be honest, his shit talking is horrible. The only shit talking he does is just bragging about followers and how much money you're gonna make with fighting him. That's all he does. That's all he says during the actual press conferences when it comes face to face. You know, that's the only thing he could come out of his mind. That's it. Incredible, man. Incredible.